to my mom, doesn't this prove that I'm not an alcoholic? Please say it does, because I am absolutely desperate to get back. And then also, I told her that the I'm hoping that the tremors will go away once I start back up again. Anyway, for just a little joke that I made with her, I thought I'd repeat it to you. Thought we'd have a good laugh, but maybe it wasn't funny. For example, one gene, DRD2, associated with the disposition to alcoholism, was found to predict homophily in clusters of friends, whereas another, CYP2A6, linked with openness, surprisingly produced the opposite effect of heterophily. Heterophily. The tendency to associate with others where there are no shared interests. In parentheses, in quotes, opposites attract. Cytochrome P40 superfamily, P450 superfamily of enzymes. Okay, not my thing. You have lost me, but whatever. Then thank you. That's why you didn't need to tell us. It's okay. It's just a series of letters and numbers in italics. All right. So we've got this one gene, DRD2, which is associated with the disposition to alcoholism, was found to predict homophily in clusters of friends. Okay. And then this other one that tends to be linked with openness, surprisingly produced the opposite effect of heterophily. The causal mechanisms by which genes might exert this influence on behavior is unclear. An investigation of the genetic factors implicated in social networking is in its early days, but the discovery that genes operate in social environments means that we have to rethink the extent to which our biology influences our behavior. Yeah, if you're an idiot. Section, the technology savannah. I take back what I said. Section, the technology savannah. Technology is changing the way we communicate, and this is going to have an impact on the way we behave socially. Specifically, social networking may have very significant consequences for the way we develop. Our human mind, which was forged and selected for group interaction on the Serengeti, is now expected to operate in an alien environment of instant communication with distant, often anonymous individuals. Our face-to-face interaction that was so finely tuned by natural selection is largely disappearing as we spend more time staring at terminal screens that were only invented a generation ago. The subtle nuance of an intonation of voice or a facial microexpression is lost in this new form of communication. So, of course, what we're exposed to, of course, it's gonna fucking change how we develop, because things get pruned that aren't, super needed. I guess the majority of pruning happens in when you're super young. But still, we'll see. No, of course. I mean, and also during your adolescence, you're fine tuning these typing skills, and maybe that's okay, but maybe not, because we're used to evolving with access to facial expressions and all this stuff, and our whole development is kind of assumes that that's going to happen, and is kind of contingent on that. So we're the descendants of people for whom that happened, and then that led to the development of other things later in their lifetime. So we just don't know how this is going to affect us, because no generation's ever had this childhood before, and it's dramatically different. Dramatically. I mean, we've had other differences, in, I don't know, a childhood during the Cold War, with that constant threat looming. During desegregation times, childhood is really, whoa, I'm being told that these guys are no good, and but yeah. All right. Anyway, the The subtle nuance of an intonation of voice or a facial microexpression is lost in this new form of communication. The physicality of interaction is disappearing, which may be something to which we will need to adapt. But ultimately, it will change the way we assemble our sense of self because of the influence of groups. Even if this turns out not to be correct, we would be wise to give these new technologies some careful consideration, as they have the potential to have profound effects on the way we live. For some time now, man has had the capability to shape his own future. With our capacity to communicate and our ability to form societies, man in general, we hand down knowledge from one generation to the next. We have used this communication to develop technologies such as writing. With the advent of science, most of us in modern societies have been freed from the shackles of hostile environments and hard times. Civilization has enabled humans to take control of processes that used to whittle out the weak. In the distant past, natural selection ensured that the old, the sick, and the infertile lost out in the mating game. This has been changed by technological innovation. Modern medicine, with its fertility treatments and healthcare, has shifted the goalposts. Of course, natural selection will always be with us, but we can use our science to outwit its relentless cull of the least suited. Human development is increasingly shifting away from natural selection to Lamarckian inheritance. The idea, named after the French biologist Jean-Baptiste Lamarck, that we can change ourselves while we are still alive and pass on the benefits of that change to our children by tailoring their environments. Is that how he explained it? Because in school we learned, I thought it was a less, okay. Because that's good. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. It's not clear how we will continue to evolve, but science and technology seem unlimited in their ingenuity to bend the rules. Similarly, our technologies and advances in communication through the web will forever shape the future of humankind in ways that are not yet clear. One thing that is certain is that the web, capital W by the way, is that the web will influence our sense of self as we increasingly live our lives online as members of virtual groups. I remember when the web first emerged. I had just arrived at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT's Department of Brain and Cognitive Science, in the autumn of 1994 as a visiting scientist. I was checking email in the computer room when Zubin Garamani and Daniel Wolpert, two brilliant young scientists, were getting excited about Netscape, one of the first web browsers that had just sent through some image files to Zubin's terminal. The internet had already been in existence for years to allow academics and the military to exchange emails, but the invention of hypertext markup language, HTML, the web programming language, provided the first opportunity to share more than just text. This was my first encounter with the web. In the past, people could email you files directly, but now anyone with the right address could visit and view material on a remote website. Whoa. It was like creating something permanent in the electronic landscape that others could come and visit well after you are gone, almost like the virtual immortality of scratching a mark on an electronic wall for others to find. As nerdy scientists that afternoon, we all recognized the importance of this capacity to share remote information, but I doubt any of us fully understood its potential power. The subsequent rise and spread of the web into everyone's lives has been astonishing for those of us who remember the pre-web days. But my daughters seem oblivious because they have grown up with today's rapid change of pace and assume it has always existed. I tell my own children that they are living during one of the major transitions in human civilization, that humankind is currently in the midst of the next great evolutionary leap. Critical recognition is going to be the biggest. So the invention of reason for a human brain, a system that can minimize mallets and so on and encourage bonnets and so on, and a system of discussion communication, it'll be the biggest leap since language. Because yeah, we can use words to interact with each other, but are we changing each other's minds? Are we really learning from each other? No. We may as well not even have words in a lot of cases. Obviously, there are a lot of cases where, thank God, we have words. That's so amazing. Hopefully, this video is one of them. But maybe this video is not one of them. Maybe this video is one of the cases where it's just a bunch of words that either are garbage themselves, aren't really gold backed, backed by gold. They don't mean anything. They don't really refer to anything true. And or maybe you get nothing out of it. So communication hasn't really even been invented yet because people, the receivers and senders of messages, don't even know that they're brains. So they're missing a lot of information about the best way or about how to effectively transmit and how to properly receive a message. So yeah, we can make sound waves, and often that triggers, the appropriate patterns in the other brain. I say chair, there's a chair pattern that happens, maybe in your visual cortex. But if I say reason, and we've known about all this stuff for a long time. I mean, your entire life, we've known about pretty much everything in this book. It has been available information. Even obvious, I think, based on the information that, we learn in school. And does that make a damn difference? No. I mean, we blow each other up because we can't have fruitful, constructive conversations a lot of the times. So, yeah, no, critical recognition, that's going to be huge because it's going to be unlocking sort of the communication potential we have now. Because we got the language part, the words and all that. We just don't really understand the reception of the message, and we don't, we're not super affected by facts. So even when facts are said, they don't have a huge effect on us, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, obviously a species achieving self-awareness, knowing what it is and how it functions, when we've never seen that before, it's going to be the most significant, evolutionary thing, right up there with Ice Age, language, agriculture. Honestly, I think it's higher. Because Ice Age, okay, because Homo sapiens had some cool problem-solving abilities and some cool abilities to teach through language, they were able to thrive in the Ice Age. And that's a big deal. All right, let's say right up there with the Ice Age. It just feels like inherently it's higher because it's more significant, because we're now not just talking about humans having some ability to, pass on new strategies to their young. Because that was easy, not easy, but we were a part of a tribe, blah, blah. Now we're in this super dynamic world where there's all these different tribes all mixed up. We don't know who to trust and, whatever. We don't know who to listen to, what to follow. We don't know which group, blah, blah, blah. Oh my gosh. So then if we knew about how the mind works with groups, with learning, with communication, I mean, come on. So, I don't know. Okay. I tell my own children that they are living during one of the major transitions in human civilization. You are part of, just by watching this, and by think about this, and by putting a comment and emailing me or something, you are part of the beginning of, it started back with Darwin, really. Self-awareness started with people, with us going, oh, wait, so are we a biological thing that comes from sort of other biological things? Are we animals? Oh, okay. That's when it started. Then with the brain age and, all about the technology and the way we can now sort of go, oh, everything about you is this part of the brain. And now it's like, oh my gosh, why did I think I wasn't like some organ in here? I wasn't like this body. Why did I ever think I was a stupid soul? Okay. Or a smart soul, actually. And then, so from Darwin until, I don't know, over the next 4 generations, uh, uh, so I feel like we're smack dab in the middle. But of course, I would feel like that. That's called egocentrism. We always put ourselves in the middle. But anyway, look, man, it was in my lifetime, the year I was born, that we started being able to do all this fMRI stuff. I don't know that it's literally the same year, but I was born in 1991. And so, bro, we are smack dab in the middle of the most major thing that can happen with a species: self-awareness, knowing what we are and how we function, and then being able to use that information and do something about it. I do this, but I don't even think I can really understand. I would need to be able to see it from the future. Sometimes I feel like I get glimpses of, we are in the past right now. We are on the precipice of. Okay. Anyway, this sort of statement may sound sensationalist. It may sound nostalgic to as some of us hanker for simpler times. It may even sound like the curmudgeonly grumblings of a middle-aged dad who laments that things were different in my day. Indeed, every generation probably says this, but I cannot overstate this transition too much. I think that most of us are sleepwalking into uncharted. No, that's not about what I was saying. That doesn't apply. I think that most of us are sleepwalking into uncharted territory. We need not fear it. It is one of the most exciting times to be alive in the history of humankind. Section: Who hath not Googled thyself? Have you ever searched for yourself on the web, entering your name into the Google search engine to see if you come up? Go on, be honest. Only the very few cannot be curious to know what's been said about them, if anything at all. Well, I just get the director of Hunger Games, and I am legend. If I type in my real name, if I type in Arisil, I just get my channel. And where better to find yourself than on the web? It's the electronic version of looking first for yourself in the group photograph or hearing your name mentioned in a crowded cocktail party, and then straining to listen to what is being said about you. The advent of the web has made our preoccupation with what others think about us a part of human nature. For better or worse, most of us in industrialized countries are now on the web, whether we like it or not. Most of us enjoy being on the web and actively use it socially to interact with others. Social networking sites such as MySpace, Facebook, and Bebo have attracted millions of users, many of whom have integrated these sites into their daily lives. The mightiest at the moment is Facebook, which currently has 750 million active users. There are several core features of the different social networking sites. First, they enable users to construct public and semi-public profiles on a website. Second, the website enables viewers to view other users who subscribe to the service, and more importantly, enables them to communicate with each other by messaging and facilities for sharing files. It's like a 24/7 virtual cocktail party where you mix with friends, but sometimes meet new acquaintances, swap stories and opinions, share a joke, maybe look at each other's family photographs and flirt, or sometimes even more. Or perhaps you sign a petition or start a cause to change things. As the new media expert Jenny Sundane succinctly put it, social networking sites enable users to type oneself into being. Not surprisingly, an analysis of personal profiles posted on social networks reflects a great deal of narcissism, the tendency to be interested in oneself and what others think about us. After all, why wouldn't we want others to know about how successful our lives were? However, this obsession with ourselves on the web will depend mostly on who you are. Being online is not for everyone. For example, my wife refuses to join social networks, but then she also does not want to appear in the public light. Like my wife, many of the pre-web generation cannot understand what is going on and frankly do not feel the need to surrender precious time, effort, and especially privacy to join online communities. They don't get YouTube, they don't get Facebook, and they certainly don't get Twitter, which seems to be the ultimate in broadcasting trivial information about oneself. However, even stalwarts against the onslaught of social networks are being dragged, kicking and screaming, into a new era. The social networking sites that have sprung up in this last decade are changing communication between people and will play an important role in self identity. If the self illusion is correct, social networking sites will continue to expand in popularity and will increasingly shape the sense of who we are for the next generation and those that follow. As long as we remain a social animal, social networks, in one form or another, are here to stay. This is because most of us want to be noticed. Surveys consistently show that the West has embraced the celebrity culture. When 3,000 British parents were asked what their preteen children wanted to be when they grow up, 1 in 3 said they wanted to be a sports figure, actor, or pop star. Compare that to the professions that topped the aspiration list 25 years ago: teachers, bankers, and doctors. Children now want to be famous for the sake of being famous because they equate fame with success. Well, the culture has equated fame with success. And children are just like, oh, what is it going to be successful? Is it fame? Okay. A recent survey of the UK Association of Teachers and Lecturers revealed that the majority of students would prefer to be famous than academically gifted. The web facilitates this obsession with fame and popularity by providing a readily accessible and updatable medium in which individuals can indulge their interest in the famous, but also begin to make an impact of their own. Anyone can gather a following on the web. It has leveled the popularity playing field so we can all be noticed. Also, for most people, the web is first and foremost a social medium. According to the Nielsen Company, which specializes in analyzing consumer behavior, the majority of time spent online is engaged in social networking sites, and that is increasing each year. By August 2011, we were spending over 700 billion minutes per month on Facebook alone. 1 in 5 U.S. adults, publishes a blog, and over half of the American population have one or more social networking profiles. Even when we are at work, we are social networking. On average, a U.S. worker spends 5.5 hours each month engaged in this activity on company time. It is even more pervasive in adolescents and young adults. At the moment, if you grow up in the West and are between 16 and 24 years of age, being online is essential. This age group spends over half of their online time engaged in social networks in comparison to older age groups. Many Western teenagers feel they do not exist unless they have an online presence. I was 11 at the time of this writing. Life online has taken over from the school playground and the shopping mall where the kids used to hang out. It has extended the window of opportunity to socialize at any time and anywhere. We used to tell our kids to get off the phone. Now they use their own phones and can be chatting online whenever they want. According to the most recent report of Ofcom, the industry regulator of communications, half of all UK teenagers, compared to 1/5 of adults, possess a smartphone. The most common use of the phone is not for making calls, but for visiting social networking sites. Two-thirds of teenagers use their smartphones. Two-thirds of teenagers who have a smartphone use their smartphones while socializing with others. A third of teenagers use them during meal times, and nearly half of teenagers use their phones to social network in the bathroom or on the toilet. No wonder that 6 out of 10 teenage users consider themselves addicted to their smartphones. They get to continue socializing well after the school is shut, the mall is closed, or their families have moved them to another town. How is this online activity going to affect their development, if at all? A child's social development progresses from being the focus of their parents' attention as an infant and preschooler to stepping out and competing with other children in the playground and class. Initially, children's role models are their parents, but as they move through childhood and develop into adolescence, they seek to distance themselves from the family so that they can establish an independent identity among their peers. As a parent, I've come to accept that what peers think can easily trump whatever a parent wants for his or her child. This may not be such a bad thing. I'm not a therapist, but I can easily believe that overbearing parenting creates later problems if children are not allowed to establish their identity among their peers. Critical recognition. Imagine how parenting is going to change once you have critical recognition. Once every time the 13-year-old screams, "I hate you," the parent is just basically like not even affected. Oh yeah, it's about time. Okay, yeah. And this is part of the process. This is, you need to go make some mistakes, break your arm, and I'll see you when you're in your 20s. I mean, yeah, we will have an easier relationship when you get back into your 20s or something. I mean, not like I'll see you later. Obviously not. That's obviously I'm not a parent if I can say something like that. um, I am not a therapist, but I can easily believe that overbearing parenting creates later problems if children are not allowed to establish their identity among their peers. These are the popularity contests that preoccupy most adolescents in Western culture. It is through this chaotic period of self-construction that the adolescent hopefully emerges out the other side as a young adult with the confidence to face the world. Hey, there you are. How was 14 to 21? I see you weren't shy with the card. As every parent in the West knows, adolescence is typically a time of rebellion, bravado, showing off, risk-taking, pushing boundaries, arguments, tears, strategic alliances, and Machiavellian negotiation. Some blame immature brains, which has perpetuated the teen brain hypothesis that the disruptive behavior of this age group is the inevitable consequence of lacking of but it's not just that. It's also, it has to be part of, but he's going to explain it. Some blame immature brains, which has perpetuated the teen brain hypothesis that the disruptive behavior of this age group is the inevitable consequence of lacking of inhibitory control in the frontal lobes, which are some of the last neurological structures to reach adult levels of maturity. Teenagers are hypersensitive to social evaluation, but does that mean stop fucking saying back to 192? How do you reset that shit? Sync to furthest page read. You are currently on page 259. The furthest read page is 249. Sure. Okay, back to 259. Great. No way. Fuck. Whatever. Okay, I'm sorry. All right. Teenagers are hypersensitive to social evaluation, but does that explain the increase in risky behavior? Psychologist Robert Epstein believes the teen brain account of delinquency is a myth, that adolescent turmoil is more to do with culture and the way we treat our children. What do you mean it's a myth? He points out, for instance, that teenage misbehavior is absent in most pre-industrialized societies. Oh. Or what if it's just not considered misbehavior? What if it's just not considered misbehavior? Because they're not telling themselves these myths about how we're these rational angels, and they're like, hey, they're not all like, stop that, behave yourself, young man. They're like, look at those teenagers. I was like that too. They're not like, don't make the same mistakes I did. You gotta do better. I fucked up, but you gotta be like this. Maybe they're just like, no, you don't gotta be like this. You'll want to be like this when you're in your 30s. Go do your thing. All right, what do you have to say to that, Robert Epstein? So you point out, for instance, that teenage behavior is absent in most pre-industrialized societies. And he argues that teenage delinquency is an invention of modern societies and media stereotypes, and describes how, before the arrival of Western media and schooling, the Inuit of Canada did not have the problems of teenage rebellion. For him, the problems we see in Western teenagers are more to do with the way we isolate this age group and effectively let them establish their own social groups and hierarchies. Do we agree with Robert Epstein? I mean, okay. These are the pecking orders of popularity achieved through the processes of affiliation, competition, and establishing one's self-esteem in the eyes of one's peers. In this situation, teenagers think that in order to gain a reputation among their peers, they have to be outsiders to the rest of society. You spend two. No, Bruce Hood. No. Say no to Robert Epstein. Others argue that the data on teenage risk taking is incontrovertible. It may be somewhat culturally influenced, but far from being erratic, teenagers are just as good as. It may be somewhat culturally influenced, but far from being erratic, teenagers are just as good as adults at reasoning about risk. Others argue that the data on teenage risk taking is incontrovertible. It may be somewhat culturally influenced, but far from being erratic, teenagers are just as good as adults at reasoning about risk. They simply consider some risk to be worth taking to prove themselves. Oh, right. Right. What were we reading about? Maybe it was men and women. And it's not that they assess risk differently, but they have different relationships to risk and the possible loss or reward. Or something, I don't remember. Developmental psychologist Lawrence Steinberg has shown that teenagers perform just as well as adults on simulated driving tests when they're alone, but run more risk when friends are watching them. Okay. And it's not that they consider some risk to be more worth taking. No, it's just that, let's see, normally there would be an it for a particular risk, let's say. Let's take our eyes off the road and look out the window. Look out a side window to look at the surroundings. And then the inhibition, it goes, oh no, don't fucking do that. But then you're with your friends. One of your friends says, hey, go look out that window. Look at that cool thing. So you have, as you had when you were alone, the it that goes, hey, let's look out that window. And then, as when you're alone, you've got an it that goes, hey, don't fucking do that. But unlike when you're alone, you have another it that goes, no, yes, let's fucking do that. This is important. Because that it is like, if your friend says to appreciate something, then go appreciate something. Share that moment with your friend. Show that, make sure that you're still part of that group. And that's 2v1, and the inhibition loses out. Developmental psychologist Lawrence Steinberg has shown that teenagers perform just as well as adults on simulated driving tests when they're alone, but run more risks when friends are watching them. When friends were present, risk-taking by speeding and running red lights increased by 50% in teenagers, whereas there was no increase in adults. One neural account is that the reward centers in the teenage brain are highly active during this period of development. Rewards are thus supercharged when individuals succeed in front of their friends, which makes success all that more sweet and the risk to achieve them worth taking. But it is not enough to succeed. One has to be seen to succeed. In the West, adolescents are faced with the paradox of wanting to be accepted by their peers, but at the same time needing to be different. Music, fashion, movies, and of course sex are the things adolescents care about the most because they are the very things that help to create the unique identities they seek. It is no coincidence that these are the main topics of quote-unquote likes and quote-unquote dislikes in online social networks. Whenever you put something up on a social network, you are inviting a response from your peers. It is not for your own private viewing. Rather, you are broadcasting your presence to the world. The number of comments and hits your activities generate tell you, and more importantly others, that you matter. Most of us want to be noticed. Social networking sites make this universal yearning the core of its activity. Having others validate your presence is the currency of popularity that individuals seek. Section, what a twit I am. One day earlier this year, the famous British actress Dame Helen Mirren started to follow me. I wasn't walking down the road in London or Los Angeles, where the Oscar winner probably spends most of her time. Rather, I was seated at the kitchen table in my Somerset barn, taking a break to look at my Twitter account when I saw that at Helen Mirren DBE was following me, or at least I thought she was. My heart skipped a beat. For the uninitiated, Twitter is a site where you can post any message, so long as it's less than 140 characters long. It's like open access texting to the world, where anyone who follows you can read your messages or link to images, read your messages or link to images and other websites that you might put up. I currently have over 5,000 Twitter followers, not to brag. I don't personally know that many people, and if you sat me down, I would be hard pressed to name a couple of hundred individuals. Even though my following may sound impressive, I am way down on the Twitter hierarchy. Individuals whom you would never imagine being icons of interest are huge on Twitter. Lance Armstrong, the top cyclist, has well over 1 million followers. Wait, when was the last Lance Armstrong thing? But was stripped. When was it? Oh, January 2013 on Oprah, he admitted. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. Guys, what a time capsule, bro. All right, Lance Armstrong, the top cyclist. Live strong, bro. I had a Live Strong bracelet. Hell yeah. Lance Armstrong, the top cyclist, has well over 1 million followers. So does the actor Brent Spiner. Who was Brent Spiner, I wondered? None other than the actor who played the android Data on Star Trek. There are a lot of Trekkies out there. What is it about Twitter that makes it so appealing? Why do we follow and want to be followed? It probably comes down to a number of related issues to do with the self. First, the human brain is a gossiping brain. We are nosy and want to know what others are up to, even if that includes what they ate for breakfast that day. Second, we like our opinions to be validated by others. When someone responds positively to an opinion or shares it with others, we feel vindicated. Of course, if our opinion is rejected or ridiculed, then our self esteem is deflated. And of course, people love to reject and ridicule and then say, free speech is important. Okay? Having the option to follow or unfollow others means that individuals within a social network tend to share the same values and attitudes. We also, ooh, yeah, in a society with recognition, um, yeah, it's the contact theory, bro. It would be the law that there are certain like random accounts that have to be followed, and like, I mean, Elon Musk would never do this, but whatever, the social network would do it. So when you have a profile, there's like 20 accounts that, and maybe they change every once in a while, but they're grayed out. You can't like unfollow them or anything. And it makes it impossible for you to totally exist in a bubble. Now, of course, there are benefits to being able to exist in a bubble. So I guess what it could be is like you are allowed to mute those accounts for a little while. Let me just be with only like-minded people. Let me just scroll with just, not things that I disagree with, not things that challenge my worldview or anything. Let me just, see what people I agree with are up to. You can mute them for a little while, but you can't mute them forever. Yeah, that's with recognition. Now if you don't believe that we're brains, then yeah, freedom. If I want to just go down a rabbit hole and only be exposed to this stuff and then go do an insurrection, okay, it's so important. And yeah, it is important. It is important to be able to to be able to do a revolution and insurrection. I hate how people talk so much shit about the January 6th insurrectionists, but it is a shame that they thought that all these things were true that were not. Anyway. Second, we like our opinions, blah, 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 blah. Of course, if our opinion is rejected or ridiculed, then our self-esteem is deflated. Having the option to follow or unfollow others means that individuals within a social network tend to share the same values and attitudes. We also like to be the first to know something or spread the word. Just don't malent these kids, okay? This is something we did as children. Remember how important it was to be the first to spread the word in a playground? But it's not because, oh, I'm better than but I want to show that I'm better. Don't malent them, okay? It's just part of the programming that it is pleasurable to be the first to know something or to be the one to spread the word. And that's good for the community when that happens too. When someone learns something and spreads the word. So, if you were the last to find out something, then that was a reflection of how important you were in the pecking order. But being the first to know something, by being the first to know something, we cement our self-importance with others. However, one of the most powerful draws of social networking sites like Twitter is that they make you feel important if you have a large number of friends or followers. Your self-worth is validated. And the more followers and friends you have, the more you value yourself. Another reason why Twitter has taken off, it is the fastest growing social network, is that celebrities happily post their thoughts and updates on a regular basis. These used to be off limits to the general public. Suddenly we have access to the famous in a way that was never possible before. The public's appetite for celebrity trivia has long been insatiable. There is a whole industry of paparazzi and tabloid press that has evolved out of the primeval slime to provide the gossip to feed the masses. But Twitter is far superior because it comes directly from the celebrities. Of course, celebrities need their followers because without the fans, they are out of the public eye, which usually also means out of work. So most now have Twitter presences. In fact, many employ writers to compose their tweets so that the illusion of accessibility and visibility is sustained. The biggest boost to your self-esteem is if a celebrity such as Helen Mirren follows you. Whenever someone of a perceived higher status befriends us, then we are raised in our standing by association. This is known as basking in reflected glory. Many of us take vicarious pleasure by associating with the success of others. This is why fans are so passionate about the individuals and the teams they support. Sports fans are probably the most common example. I've heard many a pub argument in which fans lament the team manager's decisions as if it were a family feud. Fans even talk as if they are a member of the team by using the pronoun we, like I talk while scientists. Twitter facilitates these distortions of reality by generating the illusion of easy accessibility to the famous. Anyone can follow a celebrity who's on Twitter, thus creating an interesting social phenomenon in which we feel an intimacy with others whom we would never have the opportunity to meet in our normal lives. The relatively open access of Twitter also creates problems. Strangers feel that they are on a familiar basis with those they follow, which is not so very different from celebrity stalkers who are deluded into thinking they share a life with their victims. Carl Quinn, an Australian journalist, pointed out that Twitter is perfect for mob nastiness. It enables individuals to make cruel comments and then pass them on. Many of us are in two minds about whether celebrities are flesh and blood human beings or merely life-size piñatas in need of a damned good whacking. The trouble is that as soon as a victim is identified, most of us are more willing to join in with the bullying than we imagine. Remember how that worked in the playground? It was easier than standing up to the mob. The same is true for Twitter. People join in with the mob rule. Also with the problem of polarization. And then how do you join at the mob rule? If we're programmed to join in the mob rule, that programming wouldn't work if while we were joining in, we were also like skeptical and like, gosh, well, I'm just kind of going along because it's the mob. I'm not really sure that I believe in this. Well, you wouldn't make a very good mob member, right? So part of and this applies to lots of things, part of our programming, well, we suspend any sort of thinking about no, that's terrible. I'm trying to use your language. No. Certain mechanisms are suspended. And acquiescence is the mechanism that ex-livers. And you can apply that to anything. anytime you're like, I get that I might have a bias toward this or to do this, like um, um, if someone has any kind of an authority, even if it's not relevant to the ESIC, if they have any kind of authority, I get that, like, uh, I might be programmed to listen to them, even though I shouldn't. But I'll think critically, and I won't let myself be affected by that. But no, that programming of being inclined to listen to someone with an irrelevant authority, or just authority with any ethos at all, only works if it works, right? It's not just like a piece of advice. We weren't programmed with like just lots of little pieces of advice, but ultimately there's this central self, this soul that's deciding and it's getting all this input. No, because it's too easy to not listen to that advice, and then why did that advice even evolve? So you have to it only works if it works. An instinct only works if it works. So like racism, right? Let's suppose that the benefit of racism is group solidarity and protection from potential external threats, or potential for protection from threats. Now, so then how? So if that's the benefit of an in-group, out-group bias, then how does that happen? Well, I'll tell you how it does. One way it can't, it wouldn't work is if you're like a rational soul, you're seeing the person for a person, and then you got a little guy on your shoulder who goes, "Hey, watch out! He looks kind of different. I think he's from a different group. I don't think he's one of us." That would not work. That wouldn't work. You're a sucker if that happens. It doesn't work. Now, here's another way that it could work. Here's a way that it could actually work. Imagine that you're not a rational soul, and imagine that this guy, the racist guy, he just pulls the levers. Makes you look out for anything that might be off with the guy. Points your feet the other way, gets anger ready just in case we need it. It only works if it works. Instincts don't work as just advice. So then you can imagine whatever other stuff needs to happen. So suspension of certain things, and then also believing that it's true. You're not going to be racist. The instinct to be racist isn't going to be enough unless you believe it is true, unless you can like think a couple reasons, if pressed, for why this person is actually not trustworthy. It doesn't work unless it works. It's a whole concert. It's not just a single piece of advice. Hey, be racist. No. It's a whole concert of things that happen and produce results. It only works if it works. And now you have to understand, so how does it work? How does it make it work? So that means that, so my herd mentality, I'd never do that. No, I'm a free thinker, I'm an individual thinker. But it only works if it works. So I guess that if there's a mob nearby and I get picked up in it, then how would it work? Because it only works if it works. So how would that work? Well, I guess I probably really believe in what they're doing. But how could I believe in so quickly what somebody says? But I guess that's what happens, because it only works if it works. Herd mentality doesn't exist. You won't believe in it and do it, and not see any reason not to do it, or or not think that those reasons are important reasons not to do it. It only works if it works. I have no idea whether that's profound or fucking stupid. I think it's good though. And that's for all mallets. Yeah, because we wouldn't be the descendants of people who have that instinct. That instinct didn't contribute to their survival and reproduction. And if it contributed to their survival and reproduction, it's because it affected behavior. Or effected, really. It affected behavior. It ex-livered behavior. If it doesn't ex-liver behavior, then, it's not how it works. So you have to remember, these things aren't optional. Right? And that's what should be kind of troubling, about it. And that's why we should be taking it seriously. It only works if it works. That means that if it works, then it fucking works. It makes whatever needs to happen in here for me to kick violently that can as far away as possible. That was hilarious. Remember that? Only works if it works. So the trouble is that as soon as a victim is identified, most of us are more willing to join in with the bullying than we imagine. Remember how that worked in the playground? It was easier than standing up to the mob. The same is true for Twitter. People join in with the mob rule. Also, with the problem of polarization, discussed shortly, that is endemic in social networking sites, attitudes and opinions will naturally shift toward more extremism as those who seem to agree with us egg us on, or we feel the need to be more judgmental. With their combination of distorted opinions, rapid communication without the time for reflection, and the perceived distance and anonymity, social networks are a perfect platform for us to behave in a way that we would not in real life. This raises an important bullshit. You create those conditions in bullshit. First of all, that is real life. And second of all, if you mean in physical presence without online, if you can create those conditions, and absolutely we see that. We've known about mob stuff since well before. It's just that we don't associate that with how we would behave in real life. This raises an important point with regards to the difference between online and offline selves. If we behave differently when we are online, then where's the true self, if the self really does exist? Can we draw a real difference between thoughts and actions? If our actions are virtual and anonymous, are they any less representative of our true self? One could argue that because social rules and the pressure to conform in real life are so powerful for many, offline activities do not reflect our true attitudes and thoughts. One could argue that because social rules and the pressure to conform in real life are so powerful for many, offline activities do not reflect our true attitudes and thoughts. If they can only be expressed online in the absence of the threat of any repercussions or social rejection, what kind of true self is that? That's one reason why we need to be reminded that the self is an illusion if we believe that it can exist independently of the different contexts and influences of others. One might counter that there is only one self that behaves differently depending on the situation. But that is at the heart of the illusion. We are far more under the influence of context and others than we appreciate. Just like the alcoholic who thinks she can control her drinking, our self-illusion prevents us from seeing just how far we are at the mercy of influences outside of our control. Hold on. Let's Google what's a good alcoholic test. Alcoholic test. No, that's not. I mean, how long without alcohol to heal liver? No, to prove not alcoholic. Here we go. Quora. How long do I have to drink to prove that I'm not an alcoholic? hold on. It's an addiction, right? So like, how many days can you? Um, all right, I guess I'll just look this up on my own time. Alcoholism. Uh, okay, how to know if addicted. And really, the only reason I'm broadcasting this, because I swear, as a kid, I thought it was a cool. I thought, I watched not as a kid, but as a young adult, as an adolescent, I watched come on, Tommy O'Leary. What's his real name? Dennis. Okay, whatever. 9-1. What's the show called? No, Dennis O'Leary. Tommy. No, that's the author. Oh, no. Okay. No. Tommy O'Leary. No, it's not Tommy O'Leary. Damn it. What was his name? It's definitely Tommy. And then Dennis O'Leary. Oh, Dennis Leary. Tommy Gavin. There we go. All right. I was like, that was one of the examples. Like, oh man, real men have problems with alcohol. So I think it's the coolest thing. But oh yeah, no worries, I'm not alcoholic. I always thought it was flattering when a girlfriend would say, "I think you might be an alcoholic." Oh, you think I'm a real man? No, I'm not. But I mean, I'm not an alcoholic, but I am a real man, and I'm glad they go. Just how long? Fucking how long? All right, we're gonna move on. All right, whatever. We're gonna move on. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. Right. So just like the alcoholic who thinks she can control her drinking, our self-illusion prevents us from seeing just how far we are at the mercy of influences outside of our control. But I am sure you want to hear more about Helen Mirren. What's she like? What does she eat for breakfast? Sadly, I was deluding myself with my own self-importance. When I looked at her profile, it was clearly that with only 216 followers, my Helen Mirren was most definitely a troll. Trolls are individuals who take delight in disrupting social networking sites by posting offensive comments or pretending to be someone else. I don't even know if Helen Mirren is on Twitter, but if she is, I have no doubt she has thousands of followers. For one tantalizing moment that morning, my heart skipped a beat as I thought that my adolescent crush was taking an interest in me. That would have been an enormous boost to my ego, but why would a great British actress like Helen bother with a lowly egghead like me? There again, even celebrity actresses are sometimes intrigued. There again, even celebrity actresses are sometimes intrigued by the mundane lives of mere mortals. She is human after all. Section: The Human Borg. Some commentators have expressed anxiety over the rapid rise of social networks and have predicted a breakdown in human civilization. We have heard similar prophets of doom decrying all media, from books to radio to television. One fear is that we are allowing the brains of our children to be destroyed forever as they lose the skills necessary to interact with others in real life and pass through a critical period of psychological development that is essential for healthy socialization. As the plasticity of their frontal neural circuits hardens, we are told that they will be forever locked out of normal social development and grow up into retarded adults. The claim is that they may never require the adequate attention spans that are stimulated by real-life social interaction. Social networking sites and online activity in general are depriving them of normal social environments. More alarming is the suggestion that the rise in childhood autism may be linked to increased online activity. The scientific evidence for such claims is sparse, to say the least. And indeed, the internet is arguably beneficial for those who find normal social communication difficult. Also, critical periods are restricted to total deprivation at a very early age. Remember the Romanian orphans and the critical first 6 months? There are very few children using the web before their first birthday. Also, as developmental neuropsychologist Dorothy Bishop pointed out, the claim that online activity causes autism is ludicrous, as the condition appears well before school age and the use of computers. When it comes to social development, the human brain is incredibly resilient and resourceful. So long as there is some social interaction, then all should be fine. Just like language, humans are wired for social interaction, but incredibly flexible in the actual way they do it. Yes, children may not learn the same P's and Q's of social etiquette that their parents acquired during real interactions, but they will develop their own ways of interacting both on and offline. Consider one example of how children communicate using abbreviations in texting, such as LOL, laugh out loud, OMG, oh my god, SNM, say no more, BRB, be right back, GTG, got to go, or ROFL, laugh, roll on the floor laughing, rolling on the floor laughing. It's not like a command. But he put roll on the floor laughing, ROFL, roll on the fucking floor laughing, your fucking ass off. This is a highly effective strategy for transmitting phrases in an optimal way. This was not deliberately invented and handed down by the custodians of social networks, but, like much of the etiquette on the web, emerged in a bottom-up fashion. Left to their own devices, the kids will be all right. In fact, there are arguments that rather than threatening the future of human psychological development, In fact, there are arguments that rather than threatening the future of human psychological development, the new social media is returning us to the situation that existed before the old media of print, radio, and television infiltrated all of our lives, because we have direct access now. All right, let me read that again. In fact, there are arguments that rather than threatening the future of human psychological development, the new social media is returning us to the situation that existed before the old media of print, radio, and television infiltrated all of our lives. One of the gifted prophets of this new social revolution, June Cohen from the TED organization, makes this counterintuitive point. For much of human civilization, she argues, media was what happened between people in the exchange of news, stories, For much of human civilization, she argues, media was what happened between people in the exchange of news, stories, myths, jokes, education, and art. We mostly communicated with one another around the Serengeti campfires. Up to a few hundred years ago, very few of us could actually read. Then the old media of books, radio, and television appeared. If all of human history were compressed into a single 24-hour day, these old media have emerged in the last 2 minutes before midnight. But this media was different from the village gossip we used to spend our time engaged in. Unlike normal communication, which flows in both directions, the media that entered our homes was one directional. We read the news, listened to the radio, and watched the television. We stopped communicating with each other. As Cohen puts it, TV created a global audience, but destroyed the village in the process. Right, now we're returning to now we're going to like a global village. Wow, great. You're so right, Jim. Then Tim Berners-Lee invented the web, providing a different kind of social experience. This new media, which by the same analogy appeared just seconds ago on the clock of human history, is much more democratized, decentralized, and interactive. Cohen believes that we are returning to a point in human development at which we really can communicate with each other again. Only this time we are not restricted to the physical size and location of our village. This may be true, but there are some cautionary tales that we must bear in mind. We are interacting once again, but the web is very different to the campfire or garden fence. We are unlikely to become socially retarded, but the way we construct our sense of self will be affected. The process won't stop, only the way we go about it. This is because the web is changing the way we live our lives. It is not just the amount and range of readily accessible information or the way we do business or find entertainment. It is the very way we behave toward one another. After all, interaction with one another through a computer is not natural. And of course, a scientist doesn't mean that in the sense of like natural is good, it's not natural, so it's bad. But maybe a little bit just because it doesn't necessarily correspond to our nature and the things we tended to encounter in nature. After all, interaction with one another through a computer is not natural. Then again, neither are telephone conversations, and the telephone hardly reshaped our social development. The real difference is the power of each of us to communicate simultaneously with a group as a whole. That's a first. Never in the history of humankind or any species that we know of. Oh God, I swallowed that all wrong. Oh. Never in the history of humankind have we had the ability to communicate rich information with practically anyone on the planet instantaneously. Each new innovation, from the printing press to the telephone and eventually the computer, has been regarded as a milestone in human technological advancement. But the invention of the web will outstrip them all in terms of its impact on the human race. Now we can potentially communicate with anyone. We can harness the collective power of multiple brains. Many of us are amazed by what computers and software can do. For example, there's more technology and power in today's programmable microwave oven than was needed to put a man on the moon. Moore's law tells us that computer power doubles approximately every 2 years, which is one of the reasons I always seem to delay replacing computers in anticipation of the more powerful model just around the corner. Eventually, we will reach a technical limit to Moore's law and require a new type of computing. But the web is different. The web will not be so limited. This is because the web is primarily a medium for sharing knowledge and ideas generated by brains. Every normal human brain is more powerful than any computer so far built. 2012, I don't know whether that's still the case. While today's most powerful supercomputer, Frontier, matches the human brain computing power, it consumes million times more energy. It is an apple to oranges comparison as they process information differently. Nevertheless, the human brain processing power has been estimated at 1 exaflops, around the same as Frontier. All right, back to 2012. Every normal human brain is more powerful than any computer so far built. By connecting them together through the web, we have the potential to harness the collective thinking of millions of individual brains that are constantly checking and rechecking material on the web. In 2005, the premier science journal Nature declared that the online encyclopedia Wikipedia, created entirely of voluntary contributions from web users, was as accurate as the Encyclopedia Britannica, the multi-volume traditional source of knowledge produced by teams of paid experts and first published at the end of the 18th century. Web users were simply motivated to distribute their knowledge free of charge. And we talk shit about the guy who, he wants to show off what he knows. Shut the fuck up with your malenting, because that's amazing. He doesn't want to show off what he knows, but the fact that he's programmed to share his knowledge just automatically without reward, he's programmed to do that. That's awesome. Wikipedia is funded almost entirely from public. Web users were simply motivated to distribute their knowledge free of charge, and to this day, Wikipedia is funded almost entirely from public donation. Consider decision-making and the problem of analysis paralysis, which occurs when there are too many choices. Much of that problem is solved for us on the web. When was the last time you made a purchase online and ignored the ratings and comments left by others? When did you choose the 3rd or 4th rated item on a list? I expect never. Whether it is choosing a book, movie, hotel, or microwave, we ignore the expert review and pay more attention to other users' feedback as we trust their experience as being more honest. When was the last time? Consider decision-making and the problem of analysis paralysis, which occurs when there are too many choices. Much of that problem is solved for us on the web. When was the last time you made a purchase online and ignored the ratings and comments left by others? When did you choose the 3rd or 4th rated item on a list? I expect never. Whether it is choosing a book, movie, hotel, or microwave, we ignore the expert review and pay more attention to other users' feedback as we trust their experience as being more honest. They have no invested reason to lie. We are invited everywhere on the web to give our opinion with gladiatorial thumbs up or down to make pronouncements. According to the 2010 Nielsen report mentioned earlier, up to 1 in 5 web users regularly provides feedback on movies, books, television, music, services, and consumer products. The collective experience of multiple users produces a consensus of opinion that shapes our decisions. Of course, you are the one making the choice, but it is a decision based on what others think. This hive mind process is not flawless, however, as we tend to follow the herd mentality, as evidenced by stampeding. But this compliance effect is much reduced on the web. There is more honesty and dissent when we can remain anonymous online. Of course, there are always those who attempt to subvert the process with false recommendations and condemnations, but they are eventually rumbled with time. Last year, there was an almighty hullabaloo in academia when eminent British historian Orlando Figes was accused of trashing another historian's books on Amazon in the guise of an anonymous reviewer who simply called himself historian. Figes threatened to take legal action, only to discover to his embarrassment that it was his own wife who had been writing the reviews to discredit her husband's competition. Some would call that charming wifey support. Julian did that. And his wife was pretty upset that he had been trashing her insurance sales competitor office's Google reviews. In fact, when he first told me about it, he told me it was his cousin that did it. And then eventually he admitted, okay, actually it was me that did it. With all its benefits, the spread of the web will be relentless. Oh, you know what? I thought of that story and I thought, oh, this is great. I'm not going to tell that story. I'm going to stay focused on the reading. And then I guess I forgot. With all its benefits, the spread of the web will be relentless. Over the next few years, accessing the web will no doubt improve in ease, efficiency, speed, and volume as platforms increase our ability to interact with each other. We may even one day make the unsettling transition of being integrated to the web through biologically compatible interfaces. But the basic fundamental change that is most important to human civilization is that in the West, we are all now potentially connected to each other. We can benefit from the wisdom of the crowd. And you think we will? No, you know that we won't. Because we don't have recognition. So we can communicate and have access all day long. Doesn't mean we can actually communicate or learn from each other, right? We can benefit from the wisdom of the crowd, the collective power of billions of brains. We have become the human equivalent of the Borg, the science fiction race of cyborgs from the Star Trek series, who were all simultaneously interconnected. But we are not drones. We are independent, autonomous individuals. Or at least that's what we think. Section: Mining the Mountain of Data. The march of the web may be relentless, but there's a big problem with it, literally. Natural selection tells us that when something increases in size, it becomes inefficient. In the case of the web, it is becoming too big, too unwieldy. Cisco Systems, the worldwide leader in networking, estimates how much data are generated and stored on the web. According to their chief futurist, Dave Evans, one of the guys who plans the future strategy of the company, humans generated more data in 2009 than in the previous 5,000 years combined. With numbers like that, you might as well say the whole history of humankind. There's simply too much information out there to process. Most of it is junk, nuggets of gossip or titillation. As social media scientist Dana Boyd, she avoids capitalizing her name for some reason, has commented, if we're not careful, I'm with Dana and Bell Hooks, bro. Also, my name too, bro. Lowercase e, lowercase c, bro. And you want to know the reason, Bruce said? I mean, I get that it's like, you would say it's practical. Look, I just found Cisco Systems, Dave Evans, chief futurist. So able to find them like that. Google, because it's capitalized. That's great. But okay, you're just auditing because in German, like every noun is capitalized. So